Hello dear students, let's start the chemical properties of sulfuric acid. Second part of the chemical properties of sulfuric acid. This topic from chapter 8D, study of compounds, sulfuric acid, from from class 10th in subject chemistry. Let's open your chemistry book and come on the page number 216. We already studied about some chemical properties of the sulfuric acid. Now here the second chemical properties of sulfuric acid is precipitation of insoluble sulfate. So generally sulfuric acid, when dilute sulfuric acid added to aqueous solution of salt of calcium, lead and barium, it form their respective insoluble sulfate, calcium sulfate, lead sulfate and barium sulfate. So when the dilute sulfuric acid is added into the solution of the calcium chloride, then it forms the calcium sulfate, it's CaSO4 and produces the HCl, hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is more volatile than the sulfuric acid. So the sulfuric acid produces the more volatile acid. Now when dilute sulfuric acid added in the lead nitrate, it forms the lead sulfate as a precipitate, white precipitate, insoluble precipitate, and the nitric acid as a byproduct. Now the dilute sulfuric acid is added into the barium chloride solution of the barium chloride, then it forms the white precipitate of the barium sulfate and also produce the hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, these all two acids are more volatile than the sulfuric acid, so it can easily get separated from the sulfuric acid. Now sulfuric acid behaving as a strong acid because it get ionized almost completely in water, hence it acts as a strong acid, and it also behave as a strong electrolytes. So the sulfuric acid when dissolved in the water, it gets completely ionized and produces the more amount of the hydronium ion, H3O plus hydronium ion or H plus ion. So it's behave as a strong acid, and also it is behave as a strong electrolyte. Now the pure acid is a weak acid, weak electrolyte also, as it has hardly any water to form the hydronium ions. When diluted with water, it gets ionized readily. As a result, on dilution it becomes a stronger electrolyte, but in the concentrated form or in the pure form of the acids, it do not get ionized. Now the basicity of an acid. What is the basicity of an acid? So basicity of an acid is the number of the hydrogen ion that one formula unit of an acid liberated. So the number of the hydrogen ion get liberated from one formula unit of an acid. As for example, in the case of the HCl acid, the one formula unit of the HCl is hydrochloric acid is HCl. So in this case, one H plus ion will get liberated in the presence of a particular base. So the basicity of this hydrochloric acid is 1 because it liberates the one H plus ion in the presence of a base. So there are many types of the acids on the basis of basicity. Monobasic acid, which liberate only one H plus ion, as for example HCl, HNO3. Dibasic acid liberate 2 H plus ion from one formula unit of this acid. It's from the H2SO4 replace 2 H plus ion, from H2SO3 replace 2 H plus ion also. Tribasic acids are those acids which liberate 3 H plus ion from its one formula unit. So for example, H3PO4, it liberates the 3 H plus ion. Each acid can form as many kind of salt according to their replacement liberation of the hydrogens, as it has the hydrogen ion. So hydrochloric acid can form only one kind of salt. Sulfuric acid form two kind of salt, that is SO4 2 minus salt and HSO4 minus salt. And phosphoric acid can form the three kind of salt, PO4 3 minus salt, and HPO4 2 minus salt, and H2PO4 minus salt. Now the reaction of concentrated acid. In the concentrated form, sulfuric acid behave differently from the dilute variety of the acids. First, as a non-volatile acid. So concentrated acid behave as a non-volatile acid. It is less volatile than HCl, HNO3. So conc acid is a non-volatile acid and it has a high boiling point. So when treated with salt of more volatile acids and heated, then concentrated sulfuric acid displaces the more volatile acids. So when calcium chloride react with H2SO4, conc H2SO4, then it forms the calcium sulfate and replace the less volatile acid HCl. As for example, when KCl react with H2SO4, conc H2SO4 less than 200 degrees Celsius heated to, then it forms the potassium bisulfate and HCl acid. HCl acid is more volatile acid than the sulfuric acid. Now sodium chloride heated in the presence of conc H2SO4 at 200 degrees Celsius is formed the HCl, and sodium bisulfate as a byproduct. Potassium nitrate is heated below the 200 degrees Celsius in the presence of conc H2SO4. It forms the potassium bisulfate and HNO3 as a acid, as a less volatile acid. Now NaNO3 react with H2SO4, it's form the nitric acid, HNO3. Now the H2SO4 react with sodium acetate, is form the acetic acid. Thus the conc sulfuric acid is used to prepare the volatile acid, which is more volatile than the sulfuric acid. As for example, HCl and HNO3. Second number, conc H2SO4 behave as an oxidizing agent. So conc hot concentrated sulfuric acid act as a powerful oxidizing agent. Due to the heat, sulfuric acid decomposes and produces nascent oxygen, which help in the oxidation. So the sulfuric acid generally gets decomposes, H2SO4 decomposes and to form the nascent oxygen, SO2 and water as a byproduct. So due to the presence of the nascent oxygen, sulfuric acid behaving as a oxidizing agent. It oxidizes metal as well as non-metal, and it get itself reduced to sulfur dioxide. So sulfuric acid when heated, then it form the water, sulfur dioxide, and the nascent oxygen. That nascent oxygen oxidized to the metal and non-metal. So sulfuric acid behaving as a oxidizing agent. Now with non-metal, conc sulfuric acid react with the carbon. Carbon is a non-metal. Then it form the CO2. So the carbon get oxidized into the carbon dioxide. Sulfuric acid first get decomposes into the H2O, sulfur dioxide, and the nascent oxygen. That nascent oxygen oxidizes the carbon to form the carbon dioxide. Now after adding these both equations, we get carbon plus sulfuric acid to form the water, sulfur dioxide, and the CO2. Now next reaction with the sulfur. Sulfur is also a non-metal. So similar reaction as like the carbon. Sulfur react with the sulfuric acid to form water and the sulfur dioxide. Now it's act as a dehydrating agent. Conc H2SO4 is act as a dehydrating agent. So it removes water or the element of water, which having the hydrogen and oxygen in the ratios of 2:1 substances that contain them. So dehydration of the carbohydrate. Generally the sulfuric acid dehydrated the carbohydrate, sucrose or cane sugar. The conc sulfuric acid dehydrated the carbohydrate and remove the hydrogen and oxygen from the carbohydrate to form the carbon and water vapor. Now next, the carbon left behind is called the sugar charcoal. So for example, the glucose when react with the conc H2SO4, then conc H2SO4 remove the hydrogen and oxygen from the glucose and to form the carbon and H2O. Next, from the cellulose. So dehydration of the carbohydrate and similar substances is called charring. Dehydration of carbohydrate and similar substances is called charring. Dehydration of hydrated salt. The hydrated salt lost their crystalline form and it becomes color and changes its color. Colorless to becomes colorless. As for example, when copper sulfate, it is a blue vitriol, copper sulfate 5H2O, react with the H2SO4, conc H2SO4, then copper sulfate becomes get to form the anhydrous copper sulfate. So hydrated copper sulfate, hydrous copper sulfate changes into the anhydrous copper sulfate, and the color of the blue color of the hydrated copper sulfate changes into the white, and water removed from the hydrated copper sulfate by the conc H2SO4. Now the differences between dilute sulfuric acid and conc sulfuric acid. So there are many differences. Dilute sulfuric acid and conc sulfuric. Dilute sulfuric acid is a strong acid. Conc sulfuric acid is a weak acid. Dilute sulfuric acid is a strong electrolyte and conc sulfuric acid is a weak electrolyte. Dilute sulfuric acid do not act as an oxidizing agent and conc sulfuric acid is act as an oxidizing agent. Next, the dilute sulfuric acid not used as a drying or dehydrating agent, but the conc sulfuric acid is used as a drying or dehydrating agent because it absorbs the water from the substance. Okay, this is all about the chemical properties of the sulfuric acid. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.